So today, two of the richest countries in the Americas are the United States and Canada, both former British colonies. Meanwhile, most of Latin America, which was colonized by Spain, remained significantly poorer. Yet 500 years ago, you'd have expected the exact opposite. See, when Europeans arrived in the Americas, Spain conquered the Aztec and Inca empires, which gained control over millions of people, established cities, fertile land, and obviously enormous deposits of gold and silver. So, Spanish controlled Mexico and Peru quickly became some of the most valuable colonies on Earth. Britain arrived a bit later and got places like Virginia, Massachusetts, and eventually Canada, all of which had people but offered nowhere near the same amount of easily extractable wealth. Strangely, that disadvantage may have helped shape what happened next. Because Spain had conquered large existing populations and incredibly valuable silver mines, it built an economy designed heavily around extracting wealth. Land, mines, and political power became concentrated among relatively small elites, while indigenous and enslaved workers provided much of the labor. British colonies were also exploitive, obviously, especially the plantation economies of the Caribbean and the American South. But in much of British North America, there simply wasn't an equivalent supply of silver or very large indigenous populations that could be incorporated into an extraction system. So when European settlement became much more widespread, farmers owned and worked smaller plots of land. Towns developed local economies, and colonies established elected assemblies that gradually gained significant control over things like taxation and local government. So, by the time they became independent, they inherited very different systems. The US emerged as one large country with established local governments, relatively strong property rights, and a rapidly growing economy. South America had a much harder transition. To begin, its wars for independence lasted several years and devastated major parts of the region. And instead of producing one large Spanish American country, the empire fractured into Mexico and more than a dozen states across Central and South America. Many of those new countries then spent decades dealing with civil wars, military coups, conflict between regional elites, and weak central governments. And once the US began rapidly industrializing in the 1800s, the gap became incredibly difficult to close.